Really is the theme today. We're going to start with a clip of Stephen A. Smith. You guys know Stephen A. from ESPN. He's an interesting case in all of this, which is why I show you videos of him every couple weeks, because he's a sports guy who's been largely, I would say, a default lefty most of his life. But over the last year, woke up really through COVID stuff. Probably a couple years ago was the beginning. Then he woke up with the BLM stuff, then started to see what was happening with Trump and the way the media treated him. And it seems to have now culminated because of some stuff around January 6th. So let me read this quote from the Daily Wire, and then we'll show you the clip of Stephen A. The FBI had at least 26 informants in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021, the day of the U.S. Capitol riot, including some who committed offenses but are not among the hundreds who have been charged with crimes, the Inspector General for the Department of Justice said in a report released on Thursday. The new report said the Inspector General's team determined 3 informants were tasked by FBI field offices in the days leading up to the January 6th certification of the presidential election results with the required approval by the FBI's Washington field office to travel to D.C. for events to report on domestic terrorism subjects who were possibly going to be in attendance. A review by the watchdog found that these 3 CHSs and another 23 FBI informants who were in D.C. for January 6 events did not receive authorization to enter the Capitol or a restricted area or to otherwise break the law on January 6. The Inspector General's report also stressed that none of the informants were directed by the FBI to encourage others to commit illegal acts on January 6. However, the Inspector General's team determined 4 informants entered the Capitol during the riot, and another 13 of them entered a restricted area around the building, which was a security perimeter established in preparation for the certification process. Despite this finding, none of the CHSs have been prosecuted to date, the watchdog adds. So before I throw to the clip of Stephen A., let's just think about this for a second. This is something that many of us, even if you flash back to January 7th, 2021, go find my videos covering this. Why was I not going crazy that day? Because it seemed to me that this was a largely unorganized group of people. There was no plan for an insurrection. They didn't have weapons. There was none of this stuff. Now, some of it did go haywire, and you can't just break into the Capitol and, sit down in Nancy Pelosi's chair and break windows and things of that nature, of course. But it seemed fairly obvious to many of us over the last couple of years that there was something weird going on there, that Nancy Pelosi did not give the proper protection of the Capitol, that clearly there were people probably involved who had infiltrated, that maybe were instigating violence. And now we're finding out about that. So now, Stephen A.
Didn't hear anything about that for the election. Didn't hear anything about that when the quote-unquote insurrection was broached by Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee. The belief that Donald Trump was a danger to democracy and using this as a profound, illuminating bullet point to make that case. And now here we are yet again finding even more evidence to Donald Trump's claims when he articulated that process is rigged. My big issue is that I'm really, really sick and tired of every time I turn around finding something else that the Democrats have lied about or downplayed or misrepresented along the way. I mean, I see Republicans like Megyn Kelly or Officer Tatum or Candace Owens or, the Sean Hannitys of the world. You know what I'm getting tired of? To the Democratic Party. You know what I'm getting really pissed off about? I'm getting really ticked off at every time they open their mouth about something pertaining to y'all, they seem right to make the case that the right had a monopoly on insidious, evil tendencies, corrupt tendencies, duplicitous, hypocritical, untruthful tendencies. And every time they made those accusations, we turn around and find out that at least some of them are guilty of the same. I don't know about y'all, but I'm sick of all of it. I'm sick of all of it.
I think what you're seeing right there is perhaps the final little bit of the red pill that Stephen A. Smith has been taking for these last couple years. I'm gonna put a stake in the ground right now and say this. You know, I show you these clips of Bill Maher all the time, and as I always say, I don't know that he's ever going to get there, and likely he won't. I think Bill will come back. He's on hiatus right now, but will come back in January, and he will be the sort of liberal standard against Trumpism. Okay, fine, is what it is. And he'll get certain issues right, but obviously never going to support Trump. Stephen A., I think it's obvious. You're there. You are obviously there. You have now fully seen through the lies. You are right. Why is it that you have to watch all of these people that 5 years ago, like Megyn Kelly or Sean Hannity or whoever else it is, that you would have thought was crazy or a right-wing nutbag or whatever else, and then suddenly you're watching them going, damn, they are not wrong about this stuff. They're just early in on the truth. And what do I always say? The truth is a time-release pill. But I think what is happening now, as mainstream media has started to collapse and more people, not started to collapse, it is in full free fall collapse, and more people have just woken up and they're getting news on shows like this, that the gap in time of that time release is slowing down. So we're actually starting to get truth in real time more. And it had this shift happened where more people were getting their news online than mainstream, had we fully been there, maybe mentally, around January 6th, I think it's quite possible the narrative would be completely different. So Stephen A., I think you are well on your way. You are right. They have lied about virtually everything. They will continue to lie about things. And I think regardless of what your position might be on, let's say, abortion, I don't know what it is, I think you will find a home in this new wide tent Republican Party. We'll have more on that wide tent Republican Party in just a second, but first let me talk to you about.
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful. They were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists. They were sightseers.
Oh, poop.
Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol.
Oh, poop.
They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system. Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things began to get chaotic. Capitol police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
They're going to make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley. often referred to as the QAnon
Oh,
shaman.
poop.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Shoot him. Like, you burst into the United States Senate. If he was dressed like bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him! Shoot him! It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley, and the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was in fact committing such a grave crime, why didn't the officers who were standing right next to him place him under arrest? Until now, no one could even prove that even happened. But it did.
Now, here is this unearthed footage of Nancy Pelosi that came out yesterday of her, newsflash, blaming herself for what occurred at the Capitol on January 6th. Frankie, roll this.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff should we call the Capitol Police? The National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
There's not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
So Nancy Pelosi is now the self-acclaimed insurrectionist leader. Okay, there you see it. So Nancy Pelosi said, I take responsibility. Okay, so everybody who's locked in the gulag right now who did nothing wrong because of Nancy Pelosi doing a lot of things wrong, ignoring intelligence briefings, ignoring warnings, rebuffing Trump when he asked for the troops there because President Trump fundamentally at the end of the day stands for law and order. Nancy Pelosi said it wasn't necessary. Why did she say that exactly? There's only one reason why she could have said it, because she wanted this to happen. Now, she probably wanted it to happen, but then it spiraled to a level, more people than she could have ever imagined, and that is why she said, I take a little responsibility in the moment. Maybe she didn't account for the actual level of Fed activity, and the stoking of hysteria that occurred that day. Right hand not talking to the left, Nancy Pelosi clearly wanting there to be, a bit of chaos, probably didn't bargain for how much chaos, and then in a rare moment of honesty, she blames herself. But then Nancy Pelosi went on television yesterday in the wake of all these things coming out, and she, amazingly, this is just how, just decrepit, not only the mainstream media is, but people like Nancy Pelosi, they lied through their teeth, and you see it on video, them saying it right there, and they just deny what's literally on video. Frankie, roll this.
Why do you think this is stirred up and a brouhaha on the right and in some corners of the media today?